Hey guys, how's it going? I'm planting up a couple of my containers for spring today, and I'm going for a very clean, classic look. I've chosen 3 different plants that I think most of you will have a very easy time finding this time of year. When we go down to the garden centers, a lot of times you see pansies and violas, a lot of green trailing plants like this ivy here. This one is called Goldchild, and it has a very pretty yellow variegation in it. And then I'm just going to use an evergreen centerpiece. So this one is called a Gem Box Inkberry Holly, or Ilex is the botanical name for it. And it's one that's new to me. I have never planted it in my garden before. It has been out for quite a long time. But the thing I love about it, I'm learning that so many of you guys deal with boxwood blight. And boxwood is one of my favorite plants to use in containers and in the landscape as an evergreen choice. But if you deal with blight, I can totally understand not wanting to use that and put that in your garden. So these Ilex are a really great alternative evergreen to use in place of boxwood. So what makes this a really good choice for a container is that it naturally stays small. So it'll only grow about 2 to 3 feet tall and wide if you were to never touch it and trim it at all. So it either makes a great container plant or a great small shrub you can plant in your garden. Great for hedging if you want a small hedge and not something that's going to overtake your space. It's a zone 5 through 9, so it's not something I'm going to leave in this container throughout the whole season and then throughout next winter. I will be planting it out in the landscape at some point this year. It's a rule of thumb, if you're going to try to overwinter a perennial or a shrub in a container, to choose something that's rated 2 zones lower than your current growing zone. So that means I would need to choose something that was a zone 3 in order to kind of not guarantee, but you have much better chances of winter survival. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was light requirements. So this area is kind of a part sun, part shade, which is perfect for these plants. In fact, I could probably leave, since it gets a little bit more shade, I could leave all of these plants in here through the whole course of this year, and they'll probably all do really great. You know, pansies, if you plant them in a really sunny spot, they're great for spring, but then they'll fizzle out once the heat comes. So since this is a little cooler and a little bit more shady, I mean, I could really just leave these things in here if I wanted to. The ivy, of course, can handle quite a bit of shade. Gem Box is very shade tolerant as well. It does best in a sun to part sun location, but since we did open this area up and it's getting a lot of morning sun, I think that these are going to do perfect in here. The soil is pretty fresh in these containers. You can see that, you know, it's pretty full already. I might actually have to remove a little bit of it in order to accommodate this root ball. Usually if I have soil in a container that was in there the whole prior last year, I will remove all of it and start with fresh. But since I just had a few fall plants in here and I wasn't watering it very often, and they were plants that didn't utilize a lot of nutrients, I feel okay starting with this soil for spring. So I'm just going to plant this. I'm going to have to remove a little bit of this soil first in the center, and then probably a little bit of soil around the root ball of this evergreen before I put it in. So I am thrilled. This plant fit perfectly in this soil reservoir. So now I'm going to take white pansies and just ring around the whole thing. And the last plant is the Goldchild ivy, which I'm going to work 5 of them in and try to split the distance evenly between them. All right, I've got this one done, so now I'm going to do the exact same thing with this urn. I absolutely love how these turned out. I mean, not only the color palette, I've always admired this color palette, I've always loved it. It's very peaceful to me. And it, like I said before, it's a very classic look, I think. But I also can appreciate the amount of restraint it takes to do a planter like this. When you go down to the garden center and see all of the brightly colored primrose and pansies, which I also love and I have in my other containers, it's really like you have to practice some self-control to stay within a palette like this. And the last thing I wanted to mention about this Gem Box is I just love how similar it looks to a boxwood. I mean, from a little bit of a distance, I might actually even think it is a boxwood in this container. And I do like that this variety in particular stays very full all the way down to the base. It doesn't get really straggly at the bottom. It always looks dense and like a complete plant, which I really appreciate. I like plants that have a very tidy habit. So anyway, guys, that is it. I hope you enjoyed seeing these containers come together. I'm just thrilled to have some beautiful things out here because I can see these containers from a lot of the windows in our house. So I'm just glad that there's some pretty things to look at now. And I would love to see what you guys are putting together this spring. So if you post a picture online, please tag me either on Instagram or Facebook so I can see what you're coming up with. Thanks so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.